You're listening to the How to Talk to Girls podcast with your dating coach, Trip, from tripadvice.com. Do you struggle with getting girls to like you? You'll learn step by step how to talk to girls to create deep connections, whether it be for one night of wild fun, a 1-week fling.
Are you currently involved in a sexual relationship?
Or for a lifelong partner.
Full of long-lasting pleasure.
Here's your host, Trip.
Hello and welcome to the How to Talk to Girls podcast. This is your host, Trip, from tripadvice.com. And today's episode is sponsored by Spartagen XT, your all-natural supplement filled with herbs and filled with vitamins to help you with becoming a rock star in the bedroom. How? Well, if you have low sex drive, a low libido, this is a testosterone supplement to help you boost your testosterone so you can have that libido, so you can maintain erections, so you can have that testosterone back and you can be stronger and more fit. So if this is something that is an issue for you or something you worry about, low testosterone, then check it out at SpartanLibido.com. Again, that's SpartanLibido.com. So today's episode, we have a voicemail, and this is a great question here. Common question that I get when it comes to getting sexual with women. We have a question that I'm not going to spoil it for you. I want you to hear our guest say it because he was so brave enough to leave a voicemail on the How to Talk to Girls hotline. And because he's brave, he's getting his question answered. So if you want your question answered, very simple. All you got to do is call into the hotline, 323-432-0025. How to Talk to Girls hotline, and you can call in, leave a voicemail, and I will answer it right here on the podcast. You have to be 18 or older, don't forget, and hopefully you can tell us where you're from and your first name. So go ahead, call in, 323-432-0025. Now, we just got over doing a lot of our live coaching sessions, so if you've been listening every week, you've been hearing that I put out a lot of live coaching stuff that I recorded in the past. Let me know if you like those. If you do, email me. I want to hear from you, trip@tripadvice.com. You can also email me and let me know if there's anything you want to talk about here in the podcast. Very simple. Just email me and put in the subject line, podcast question, and I will get to you. That's trip@tripadvice.com. Don't forget that's with 2 P's. Don't forget that. Some people forget that. That's okay. So today we got a voicemail, which I told you is about getting sexual with a woman, and I'm going to play it for you right now and then get into it and answer the question. So here it is, our voicemail from...
Hey Trip, Jake from Colorado here. 20 years old, and I kind of have a two-part story here. First is success, second is a question, rather. So part one, well, first of all, thanks for everything you said, Trip. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and you got a lot of great stuff. So jumping into it, I met this girl at the gym, and I just recently listened to your gym podcast. It was like the day before or something. And I saw her, and I was like, wow, that girl's really hot. And so I said, in my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to do exactly what Tripp said to do this time, just to give it a try. And I did. And sure enough, I got her phone number, and we've gone on a date. And so second part would be the question. How would you turn a small talk conversation into a let's go have sex conversation? Like, that is a huge mystery for me. So yeah, that's it. Thanks, Trip, for everything again. Have a good one.
Well, thank you, Jay. I will have a good one, and it looks like you're having a great one too. Thanks again for leaving a voicemail. Really appreciate it. So we can answer your questions and we can get this question answered for all the other people listening. So that's great. You're really contributing, and we thank you. Now, you got to remember, before I get into this, you got to remember, and I'm really, actually, when I say this, I'm not speaking to you, Jim. I'm speaking to the other guy right now, you who's listening to this episode. Isn't it crazy that when you take action, you can get results? Now, I'm not going to sit here and brag like, oh, I'm the best, I give the best advice. Listen, I'm sure that there's plenty of advice that I've given that you've tried and it hasn't worked for you, just because not every single bit of advice works for every single person. But the point is he took action, and I have to commend him for that and show you that what happens when you take action. Because I know that there's still some of you out there who are still listening and you haven't done anything with it. This is episode 120. And of course, I think I have over like 200 videos, and I got programs, I got products, I got so much stuff out there, so much content, and there's so much for you to apply and to do, because everything I tell you is pretty practical advice. I mean, I give theories too, because you got to understand why things work and how it works, but this is really just a testament to the fact that when you listen to something and you take action, it could possibly work for you, and it did for him. So now we're going to take this to the next level. Now you got the girl on a date. You met her at the gym, which is really cool because that is a difficult place to meet women. I have to say, meeting girls at the gym. I've only met a few girls at the gym before in my history, only a few times. It's not a common place where I do approaches or like to talk to girls. But for you, glad that it worked, okay? Now, you're saying, okay, how do you take the small talk to the sexy talk, right? To the sex stuff. How do you get that to happen? Well, here's the thing. Here's the kind of underlying theory you should really know in terms of how this works. So what you have to understand is that a girl is not going to have sex with you, and she's not going to want to get physical with you. She's not going to want to kiss you. She's not going to be attracted to you unless she feels trust, safety, and comfort. Okay, so those are very important things to turn a woman on. Now, another thing is about spiking a girl's emotions, bringing in emotional factors, which creates attraction. So I know that there's a lot of stuff here, and this is, there's like hours and hours and hours to kind of teach you how to do this. I know we only have a little bit here in the podcast, so I'll give you as much information on how to do this as possible in such a short time that we have, okay? But you have to realize that a woman has to feel that way, and the way that you're going to be able to do that to make her feel comfortable and trustworthy around you is by a few things. One, non-judgment. So you have to make sure that you're not judging a girl. I've talked about this before on the podcast, and I'm happy to repeat it because it's very, very important stuff, especially if you want to get more girls to like you. You gotta express non-judgment. So you can't ever make her feel like she is a slut, like she is, or I should say, you should never you should never ever bring up the topic of sex in a embarrassing, shameful way. So here's a little trick, okay? Is that when you're comfortable with sex and talking about it, then the people around you, like this girl that you're interested in, is going to be comfortable too. Okay, it's very powerful. Okay, when she sees that you might bring something up, or you might ask her about something about her sex life, or maybe you ask her like what the kinkiest thing she's ever done is, or maybe you ask her where the craziest place she's ever had sex, or something like that. Okay, but you ask her not in a way where you're like kind of winking at her, like, hey, what's the kinkiest place you ever had sex? But only as if you're kind of asking her because you just like talking about that stuff. You're not trying to turn her on with this conversation, but you're trying to make her know that sex is something that's completely normal. That's something that you are very open with and open talking about. You're not embarrassed to talk about it, and you have no shame around it. See, a lot of guys have shame surrounding that area because maybe they're a virgin, or, maybe there's been some bad things in their past, whether it be they were sexually abused in their past, or, a whole number of things. Maybe they didn't learn about sex or get physical with a girl until very late in their life. So there's a lot of shame around it. And because there's a lot of shame around it, it's very difficult for guys to at all bring it up in conversation, at all feel even comfortable if it does come up. A lot of guys might blush. A lot of guys might kind of give nervous body language. So you got to remember that when you bring it up, and I'll give you some tips in a minute of how you can do that, but you got to know that when you bring it up, you got to be very comfortable. So how do you be comfortable talking about it? Well, the way you talk about it. Like, see how casual I'm talking to you right now in this moment? Like, this is the way you want to talk about sex with a girl. You want to be comfortable with it, okay? You want to be comfortable with it. You can't be like, so look, where's the where's like the craziest place you've ever had sex? Oh my God, right? If you're just really weird about it and kind of creepy about it, she's going to feel that way too. But if you're more normal about it, then she will also. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, in order to start bringing this up and get to the point where she's actually having sex with you, there's a lot you need to do in between small talk to getting a girl to have sex with you talk. But basically, you want to kind of take these small little baby steps, okay? I mean, it's pretty much impossible, right? Let's just go to the extreme example. You can't go up to a girl on the street and say, hey, I don't know you, but would you like to come to my apartment and have sex with me? You'll probably get a no, even if you tried and did it 2,000 times in a row. And if you even got a girl to do that, she was probably kind of messed up in the head to even say yes. Most people would not do that, okay? Why? Well, it's pretty obvious why, right? They're not going to do that because they don't know you. You're a stranger, right? Now, a guy might say yes. Not every guy would say yes, but maybe you would say yes if a hot girl came up to you and said, let's have sex, because we're just wired a little bit differently. We don't think about these concerns of safety and trust and things like that, but women do, okay? Women do, and it's very important to them. So my point is you got to take these small steps from small talk to get her comfortable and to get her turned on by you. Now, there's a whole lot of ways to do this. Like I said, this is pretty much the big question, right? This is what my whole podcast and what everything on my YouTube channel and all my programs are about, is everything in between small talk to getting a girl to actually have sex with you and maybe even become your girlfriend. There's a lot of stuff in between. But so you asked a very big question here, Jay, but I guess I just want to answer this as much as I can and tell you that it's the small steps which are going to get you there. So small talk, this can be you guys chatting about more about you and what you do and things like that and getting to know each other. But then you can bring up kind of more of a, dirtier conversation. And again, this is going to kind of take practice. It all depends. There's so many different variations and situations of conversations that you can be in with a girl. So I can't give you the this is the best way to do it, because it all depends on where you're at in the conversation. But you can start bringing up sex talk with a girl by asking her about her past, like boyfriends and things like that. You can even ask her something small, maybe about kissing, right, which can lead to more dirtier things, right? You can't just ask her hey, what's your favorite sex position? I mean, listen, you could, but it might come off really strong if you just meet a girl. So you can ask her, hey, I have a question. When was the first time you had your first kiss, right? It's a very innocent question. You ask them that, they probably say it's 5th grade, 8th grade. Maybe it was until they're 18. Who knows? But then you can kind of move from there. Ask them questions about when the first time they had sex. What was it like? Hopefully you've already had sex and you have. I mean, I personally have a funny story about the first time, or when I lost my virginity, which was the first time I had sex, right? So I have a funny story behind it, and then you can start getting kind of deeper and deeper and more into more sexual stuff, and then you can go into well, where's the craziest place you've had sex? What's the hottest thing a guy can do during sex? What's your favorite position, right? Something like that. All very easy questions, but you gotta kind of get your way into there. Now, I know your question here, Jay, was, all right, now that I'm taking conversation to a sexual level, you want to know more about, well, how do I get them to the let's have sex, right? Well, this is going to take, again, more time spent together and turning her on. So you're going to have to go on a couple of dates, okay? You're going to have to go on a couple of dates, and you're going to have to basically make sure that she continually stays attracted to you and stays comfortable with you and that you turn her on. And a lot of great ways to do that I talk about in my first episodes of this podcast. One of them was titled The 8 C's of Attraction. Okay, so these are things that you have to be in terms of how to be a man to keep her attracted and keep her interested in you. Now, if you combine that with some of this sex talk, that might turn her on, and then showing her that you're comfortable with sex, talking about it, and that you show her that you have no shame around it and that you won't judge her for being sexual. Well, this is going to make her want to have sex with you more and possibly even faster if that's something that you want to do. Now, again, I got to say here, please, guys, don't use this stuff to just go out and use women. You know, I hopefully I preach this enough on this podcast and on my channel. This advice is not meant to just have you go out and use these things to just sleep with as many women as you can and kind of leave them by the wayside. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with sleeping with a lot of women. I don't think there's anything wrong with having one-night stands. I don't think there's anything wrong with having casual sex. By all means, do it. It's great. It's fun. That's something you should be doing. But a lot of this stuff is very powerful, and you can turn on a girl a lot, make her like you, have sex with her, and then all of a sudden just dump her, and you've just used her for sex. It's not what I want you to do, okay? Let her know up front, hopefully sometime in the first couple of dates, first conversations, that you're not looking for anything serious at the moment. Some girls aren't either, and they won't care. Okay, that's not necessarily going to push a girl away if you say that. Okay, but just don't let a girl, think that you're in love with her and like her a lot, and you're really just using her for sex. I really don't condone that. That's just really the wrong thing to do. And think about the golden rule. The golden rule, which you don't want done onto you, you shouldn't do to others. So, not that you probably wouldn't want a girl to use you for sex. Maybe you would, but that's not the point. The point is you wouldn't want a girl or someone else to hurt you and manipulate you and make you think one thing when it's really the other, right? Of course you wouldn't. So let's not do that to other people. Okay, now that was the big disclaimer here. But with all that being said, you got to remember that girls want to have sex. They do. They want to have it. You want to have it. Everyone wants to have it. You're human beings, and this is completely natural. Okay, so in order to get to the point where you can start having sex with girls, okay, you have to let them know that you are a sexual being. So a lot of that is going to come through in your flirting and in the way you show your masculine presence, okay? Because your masculinity and what makes you a man, like the stuff that I talk about on my channel, and again in that one episode called The 8 C's of Attraction, showing that is going to turn her on the most and make her known that you are a sexual, attractive, powerful, confident, masculine man. Okay? That's who you are. So I hope that answers the question. Now, I know that, there's a lot more to this. Again, Jay, you asked a big question here. I almost didn't answer it. I really didn't. I'll be honest with you, because it was such a big question. There's so much going on, taking it from small talk to I want to have sex with you, or let's have sex talk. Right? There's a lot happening in there. Okay? But this is the beginning. So hopefully some of this stuff makes sense, and I kind of taught you some good techniques on how to turn conversation sexual, and of course some other things to make her see you as a sexual being, and one that is not shame, it doesn't have shame around it. Okay, because that's going to be a huge step to making her feel comfortable to have sex with you and be sexual with you. Okay, but all the stuff in between, all the things you got to do in terms of how to be that attractive man and how to turn her on, keep listening to the podcast. I got way more stuff. Trust me, there's no end in sight for all the information and cool stuff I'll be teaching you on this podcast, and all this stuff I've already talked about in the past 119 episodes up to this point. So stay tuned for more. Now, if you're still tuning in, I'm glad you are, because I want you to call in and leave a voicemail, and I'll answer your question. 323-432-0025, and please leave a review. It helps me. If there's any way you want to kind of pay me back in a way that reciprocates kind of all the information I've given you, all I want you to do is leave a review for the How to Talk to Girls podcast. Every review, every single one I read, and it means the world to me. And I like to hear your feedback. That's why I want to see these reviews. I love your feedback. How am I doing? Can I do more? Can I answer more questions? Do you want other guests? Is there anyone that you recommend that I interview? Because I still do those. I still interview people. I want to hear from you. Love your feedback. So hit me with it on iTunes or on Stitcher. Leave a review. Hopefully it's 5 stars, because I think we've put out some good stuff here, some good actionable stuff. So that's what I want from you. And of course, have a great week and put this stuff into practice. Hope this has helped. Thank you for listening. How to Talk to Girls.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. Over 18 and want a question answered on the podcast? Email all your questions to Trip@tripadvice.com.